Hello, good evening. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I am now live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. So go ahead and put your questions in the comments. I also have a great topic for you, and it's a practical one. It's traveling with the travel document or advance parole. First of all, what is this travel document? What's advance parole? I'm going to get to all of that. And I'm also going to answer questions about whether it's safe or not, or what considerations you should keep in mind when you are going to travel on a travel document, or you're trying to decide whether it's appropriate to travel on a travel document. Now, the travel document is, or advance parole, is a document that is granted to you that allows you to be able to leave the United States and be able to re-enter the United States. Usually, you have to have certain benefits, or you have to be applying for certain benefits or forms of relief to get advance parole. The great benefit of advance parole, though, is that it doesn't count as a departure. For under immigration law right now, that could change, but right now it doesn't count as a departure that would cause you to have a 10-year bar or a 3-year bar if you left the country. Now, when you're applying for usually adjustment of status, or if you have DACA, you're able to apply for this travel document. Now, depending on what type of immigration relief or benefit you're applying for, the terms of the advance parole, whether you get approved for advance parole or travel document, is going to depend on those. So on what type of application you're filing for. With the advance parole, in regards to DACA recipients, it's on a more limited basis, and you definitely need to show proof that you have a necessity to leave the country on advance parole. Whereas with adjustment of status, if you're applying for adjustment of status, you don't necessarily need a specific reason. It is just one of the benefits that's granted along with the work permit, if you apply for it, of course, while you're waiting for your adjustment of status, your green card process, to be completed in the United States. Now, the next question to address here is it safe to travel? And the reason I'm saying this is because there are individuals who you may be out of status, you don't officially have approval on your green card yet, and you were granted, or you are applying for the travel document. You're trying to figure out if it's safe to leave the country. And it's going to depend, but it's going to depend on different considerations. At what point are you in your process? How does your application look? Are you getting indications that you're on shaky ground in your immigration process? For example, did you get any requests for evidence? Did you get any notice of intent to deny? Because those would, if you did get something like that, or there's some other indication that you're on shaky ground, then at that point, I would be a lot more hesitant to say, go to leave the country, it's fine. Because if you leave the country and you get a denial while you're outside of the country, that could complicate your case. That could even prevent you from getting back into the country. Because remember, once you have a benefit that's denied, and then you're outside of the country, your work permit as well as your travel document become invalid documents. And that means that when you're coming in, they're going to say you're no longer eligible because you have an invalid document. So the number one thing is that, we'd have to evaluate your particular situation. What does your case look like? What stage is your case in? Do you have an arrest? Do you have any other issues in your background that will be of concern that could compromise you if you're outside of the United States? And so if you have any concerns, as a matter of fact, if you don't have any concerns, but you want to make sure that you get the right legal advice, before you leave the country, you need to schedule an appointment with your attorney. And that's what I advise my current clients on. On whether they are able to leave the country. I monitor them. I make sure that it is safe, and I would recommend it before they leave. Now, at the point that I do say, I think you are good to go, it's safe for you to travel, the next thing that we consider is, what do you need to travel? Where are you going? And what are the documents that you need to make your trip seamless and to lower the risk of any complications happening while you're out? The number one thing is, if you are going to a country that requires a visa, that U.S. travel document is not going to, it's not giving you any exception to visa requirements of the other country. Remember, only U.S. citizens can travel to certain countries without visas. If you're from a country, so for example, if you're a Jamaican and you want to go and visit Canada while your process is pending, you will need to make sure that you meet the Canadian requirements to enter the country. So you'll need to make sure you have to look into whether you require a visa from them in addition to the travel document, because the travel document is not usually a problem leaving. It's going to be a problem. The travel document is there to allow you to get back into the country. And so in order to leave the country and get to where you're going, you need to make sure that you can meet the requirements of the other country. Of course, if you're going to visit Jamaica, if you're a citizen of Jamaica, because I use that example, if you're a citizen of Jamaica, chances are you don't need anything because that's your home. But if you're choosing to go to another country and we've determined it's okay for you to, the next thing you need to consider is, do you meet all the requirements to get to that country? The other is, you should have at least a copy of documentation proving that you're applying for the benefit and that your benefit is currently pending, along with your travel document. And that is very important. Don't lose that travel document. It's a card. Sometimes it comes on its own. Sometimes it comes as a combo card with the work permit, if you get both of those. So, and the last thing that you need to check off your checklist is to get legal advice. Schedule a meeting with your attorney or get individualized legal advice from an immigration attorney about whether you can leave the country, whether it's advisable to leave the country, whether you would be permitted. Now, another thing I want to say here is, generally, when you have a travel document, it is there to minimize the risk of you being denied entry back into the country. As a matter of fact, if you're out of status here, or you have a pending application, you have a pending application and no travel document, you're gonna be in trouble. Because without a travel document, if you leave the country, you are definitely endangering your application process. So that travel document is there to safeguard your process and safeguard your re-entry. However, you must know that there are risks still. It may be a small risk, but you do need to understand that when you leave the country, you are exposing yourself to some risk. That when you get to the border, if something happens between you leaving the country and coming back, that could affect an officer's decision to grant you re-entry into the country. And so that is where getting personalized legal advice is going to be very, very, very important. All right. So let's see. So my H-1B extension was applied on September 30th, 2021. It's been more than 5 months. I'm still waiting. So there is a backlog, but this is very specific. You will need to contact me or your employer, because the employer is the one who really does the extension, will need to contact me to get personalized legal advice for me to determine what's going on in the case. What happens if an employer wants to file for an employee? How can we go about that? So first, we'll have to determine how you qualify. Do you qualify, and what are the needs of the employer? what are your qualifications, and whether it is feasible to do that. There are different categories of employment based, and so your qualifications is what's going to determine which category you can go into. In addition to that, if you show exceptional ability, you qualify for that. Extraordinary ability may be a possibility that you could apply on your own. And so these are the important things we would have to sift through to determine whether you can qualify through an employer or through an employee. Another thing is your immigration status. If you are out of status, then we'd want to determine whether a waiver is feasible to still let you go through the employment-based green card process. Because in some cases you may need to be outside of the country, or you could stay here for a little bit and then you would have to go back at some point. Or you may very well qualify for adjustment of status if you're in status already and you just want to change from whatever status you're in, legal status, to permanent residence through the employer. Thanks so much for the love. I appreciate it. I appreciate that greatly. So how long is waiting time after I-130 approval and I submit the I-485 and I-765? So you could be looking at anywhere from 12 months to 18 months to be able to get an interview. The I-765, the average time right now is 9 months. It is going as long as a year for some people. Now, Debbie, and I don't know who you're applying based on, but very important that you get that evaluated. Who is sponsoring you and what is your current immigration status? Because that's going to determine whether you can qualify. Okay, so if it's your daughter, that means your daughter is a U.S. citizen and you would qualify. While I can't confirm that here, generally, U.S. citizens, sons or daughters 21 and up can sponsor their parent. As a matter of fact, if your daughter is a U.S. citizen, you could have filed the I-485 and the I-765 all at one time with the I-130, and that would have gotten your work authorization application going from the get-go. So Debbie, make sure you get legal advice about the best ways to approach your application so that, okay, so you're sponsoring your daughter. And Debbie, are you a U.S. citizen or are you a permanent resident? So that's going to be the next question. If you're a U.S. citizen and your daughter is under 21, that's fine. She also qualifies as an immediate relative of a U.S. citizen. Now, another thing, Debbie Ann, is your daughter currently out of status? And how old exactly is she? Because these are the, is she here currently on status, an F1 status, for example, student visa, or is she out of status? If she's out of status, you definitely want to make sure that you get the right legal advice, because an adjustment of status application may not work here. So you want, okay, so Debbie Ann, that's where you need to schedule an appointment. Because if you have a child who's under 21 and you are a permanent resident, generally, while I can't confirm anything with you here, I can tell you generally individuals, children of green card holders who are out of status cannot apply for adjustment of status. So make sure that you schedule an appointment. Right. So the sad part here, Debbie Ann, is that because only sons or daughters of U.S. citizens can be out of status. The I-130 is approved, but it's not giving her permission to adjust status here. What determines whether adjustment of status is right or not would be the current immigration status. She has to have current status because she is the daughter of a permanent resident. She's not the daughter of a U.S. citizen. So that's the difference. So Debbie Ann, make sure you get legal advice before you do anything. Make sure you get legal advice or you're going to end up going down a rabbit hole and making the situation more complicated. So definitely, I can't stress that enough. Make sure you get personalized legal advice to get to the appropriate way that you can apply for this. Because if your daughter doesn't have status, that I-485 is going to be useless. They, at the time they apply for the adjustment of status, they have to be have current status. All right. Can we leave the U.S. if we applied EB3 visa, skill, non-skill categories? So it depends. So if you applied, where are you in the process? Are you applying for adjustment of status? Now, if you leave the country, Rajan, get legal advice, because there are so many things here, so many factors that we'd have to take into consideration. If you leave the country, what's going on with your current immigration status? Do you need a waiver? Are you out of status? Are you trying to not get out of status, so you're leaving the country to wait out your process in the country that you're from? These are the questions that I would have to ask you to determine whether you can leave the country. Do you have a work permit? Do you have a travel document? So forth. How does someone get in contact with you? So Shaki Fab, it's, if you go to the link in the profile, you will see the link to the website. You go there, you'll see option to schedule your appointment. You will see the button to go to the website. You can choose those, whatever option, and it's going to, all of them are going to lead to the scheduling coordinator. So go ahead, schedule that appointment. We can do a personalized legal evaluation and help you to get where you want to go here in the U.S. My U visa is pending since 2017 August. I have Social Security from my school. Can I work outside? So you will need a work permit to be able to apply for the base. So if you have a Social Security number, I don't know if you have a work permit. So it sounds like you were on the F1, now you're applying for the U visa, and it sounds like you don't have the work permit yet. So you would have to get a bona fide filing determination. That's what's happening right now. And then apply for the work authorization. So you cannot work without getting employment, a work permit to do that. A friend of mine, uncle, filed for his mom and siblings, and they got in less than a year. How is that? So that's not right. So I don't know if this was maybe 30 years ago that this happened, but right now, if someone filed for their, he could file for his mom and she would get in within less than a year, but those siblings are not going to get through that way. The mom who becomes a green card holder would have to apply for the siblings, or they would have applied for other benefits, but it's definitely not going to be the uncle that directly filed for his siblings, because that process is taking anywhere from 14 years to 20 years, depending on what country you're from. But he could, if he's a U.S. citizen, he could definitely sponsor his mom. Great question so far. Now I'm heading on over to Instagram, so you're free to join me over there on Instagram. I'm the Immigration Attorney on Instagram. Join me over there. I'm going to continue the live there. If you can't join me there, remember, go ahead, schedule a consultation, especially for those who I answered questions, but I couldn't get very specific. Just because, remember, I'm giving you general information. I'm not giving you personal legal advice. And so if you're in a situation where you need that advice, you should schedule that appointment. That's going to be very important for you. So you can go ahead, schedule by going to the link in the profile, or you can join me in a quick minute on Instagram where I'll continue the conversation. So less than a year for siblings? Absolutely not. Not going to be less than a year for siblings. My green card expired and I applied for citizenship. Yes, you can do that. You can apply for citizenship even after your green card expires. All right, that's going to be it for me. I will see you tomorrow. Let me just check here on YouTube, make sure. Okay, so I have one question here on YouTube. Okay, hi there. It's nice to see you, Shauna. Thanks on YouTube. Thank you for joining me today as well. I will be back tomorrow at 4 o'clock Eastern time to continue to answer your questions and to bring you a good topic. So I hope you got some good information. If you want to join me in a minute, I'm The Immigration on Instagram. Also make sure that you schedule your personal consultation so that you get the advice you need to move forward in your process. That is very important. This is your future. This is your children's future, your family's future. Make sure you do it right to get the right guidance through your process. All right, have a good one. I'll see you tomorrow.